to Tabletop Salt. I'm Ross, and today I'm going to be looking at the Kroot Hounds announcement. Now, it seemed almost inevitable we were going to get the Kroot Hounds updated. After all, they're some of the most iconic units when it coming to the Kroot, and we'd seen the Carnivores updated, the Krootoks updated, so it seems like, of course, we're going to get the Hounds as well. So let's have a little bit of a look at that. Before we look at the Kroot Hounds models and their rules, just want to talk about where we are so far with Kroot. So we've obviously got the new box set, which is the Kroot Hunting Pack Army set, and it's offering 26 new models along with the Tau Empire Codex. Now, this is very similar to a lot of the other box sets we have seen of a similar vein, so really good to see a bit of consistency there. We know where we're kind of getting. Now, what we do get in that, we do have the War Shaper. Now, this appears to be the Kroot Commander, Kroot. It probably sort of does a lot more damage. There's a lot of weapon options, so that'll be sort of your damage dealer HQ choice, I imagine. The Flesh Shaper, on the other hand, is quoted as the Masters of Ritual Butchery. Now, that gives me an idea that they offer abilities to unit. Possibly if they kill a certain type of unit, then they might offer abilities back. So if you kill, let's say, a Space Marine or Astra Militarum, etc., maybe Orcs, then that might offer you a different type of ability, which I think really cool. Depending on the opponent you're facing, then that would be an additional ability. Now, I have heard that there are lore, I'm not the strongest person in lore sometimes, that the Kroot can't consume certain forces. I'm looking at, I think it's Tyranids in particular, just for the way they work. So, interesting in that side when I've looked at it. Now, that might not work if they can't consume Tyranids. Maybe it would be a case of they have a generic ability where, like, if it was Tyranids going against, then they'd go, nope, don't consume, and the buff would be something different. I'm not sure. Just like that ability of, if you consume, say, a humanoid force, that happens. If you go against, let's say, Tyranids, or let's say Necrons, which they probably couldn't consume, maybe if you go against something with the keyword Aldari, you get that ability. It seems maybe a bit overcomplicated, but I think that'd be really, really cool to see. Makes it not a solid unit that you can't really choose the ability you're getting, but I'd love to see something like that. Then we've got the Kroot Carnivores, such an iconic unit. It's been a long time. I mean, I don't think they've been updated once really in 20 years, other than a unit we'll go on to in a minute. Krootoks, again, another one of the probably three most iconic units for Kroot, that being the Carnivore, Krootoks, and of course the Hounds. So it's good to see that updated. We've got the Krootoks Rampagers, which really fills in a good niche unit for the Tau Empire in general. You've got your tough, fast cav. Really, if you want this unit to go ahead and if you're going to contest objective in combat and you want to use weight of force rather than maybe in the Kroot Carnivore's case, which would be weight of numbers, this might be a really good unit to go for. And then, just to say, in previous years, we've also had the Kroot Far Stalker Kinbad. Now, this is something we had a wee bit back, and I suppose you had different Kroot Carnivores there. We had Kroot Weaponry we've never seen before, and we also had two Kroot Hounds there as well. So that's kind of where we are with the Kroot at the moment. Now let's have a look at the announcement with the Hounds. And comes the Hounds themselves. So it's really good to see. I mean, I just couldn't imagine there was going to be a Kroot update and not have the Hounds updated. After all, other than the Far Stalker kin, I don't think there was any, Kroot Hounds since they initially released almost 20 years ago. So it's really good to see the iconic Kroot unit, the loyal companions of the Kroot Carnivores come along as well. So from the old to new, the previous models were part of the first wave of Tau, I believe, in 2001. I remember my friend back then, who has been on the channel, he just went hard into the Tau to begin with. Can't quite remember whether he had any Kroot themselves. I'm pretty sure he probably did. I remember him absolutely loving the Hammerhead, and it caused me a lot of problems back in the day. That's a story for another day. But really good to see a unit that's over 20 years old, and other than the Kroot Farstalker Kinbad in 2022, get an update. Now, what are my thoughts on the models? So, it's an interesting thing to mention here is that the new models, when you compare them to 2001, is that there's many obvious changes. They're far more muscular compared to the Hounds in 2001, where they are a lot slimmer, and that the face is entirely different there. Now, between the Kinbad ones, I do believe there's some subtle differences. What I would say is that their face, their beak is less pronounced, a wee bit, Their chunky legs are, legs are a bit chunkier and they have the braces on them. I'd say probably the biggest difference between them is that the underside appears very different. Now, when it comes to Kroot and everything with their evolution, you could maybe justify that the different way they consume, that it can affect their physiology. But it's just interesting that a unit that we had a little bit of an update a few years back is now a little bit different from what you might have expected. You would have thought that the kin band would have been what we'd got, and it's just that slight difference in the models. So I'm intrigued, but I do like the models. I've seen some people saying they prefer them to be more lithe than muscular, but I actually really do like them. They do look a lot more threatening. Now, thoughts on the rules themselves. Is it the loping and pounce? Advance and charge, but it's limited. You have to have a Kroot infantry unit nearby. Now, that's going to be interesting in regard to the next point, which is obviously, what if a character is nearby and it's an infantry unit? Then do they get infantry keyword, etc.? If they count as a Kroot, character being in their infantry keywords. Interesting on that side, but it really gives the idea of unleashing the Kroot Hounds and just pouncing on your enemy. And they said that their maximum range is roughly about 30 inches if you roll all the sixes in the world. So that could give you a good unit that can obviously travel a large distance, possibly get and contest an objective, or if they're quite strong enough, good enough tags, get some units off an objective. Say if there's maybe guard far away in the corner sitting on an objective and you unleash these guys, I think they're probably going to win that objective over if it comes to guard. Something a bit tougher, maybe not, that might be a bit difficult. However, there is also the other rule, which is the hunting hounds. While this is within 12 inches of one or more Kroot character, then the objective characteristic of this unit is 1. So that sounds like they are going to be objective characteristic of 0, which kind of makes sense with the way they were talking about swarm and stuff. So that gives you a real good ability that if there is that objective that is far away, vulnerable, maybe your opponent's got it with a weaker unit, pounce on them, even if your opponent has, say, a few models left that maybe obsec 2, but you've overrun them with hounds. Might be really good there, so really handy. Now, they did say there might be hints to a character being able to keep up. I'm really intrigued how that's gonna go with sort of the Kroot infantry idea, Kroot character, just very, very intrigued on that one, how that's gonna synergize together. And I thought I'd finish this by maybe discussing sort of what my future of the Kroot, my hopes for the faction would be. So, because it's entirely speculatory on this side. So, firstly I'm going to talk about the characters. So, I'd really love to see a Kroot special character. Now, in the past we've had, now I might butcher this pronunciation, Dayak Grek from the Blackstone Fortress. So, good to see that character maybe come back in, maybe work as like a sharpshooter character, though I don't think he's using the sharpshooter rifle, but maybe a spotter or something like that. Forward character, maybe think of like the Primaris Lieutenant, the forward one for Space Marines that you'd got in the new Leviathan box set. Maybe an equivalent to like that in some way, but it'd be really good. He's kind of already a character in some way, so it'd be good to have that. But another special character would be good as well to fill the role, but I'd love to hear some lore filling out the character, maybe linking into the perspective of joining the Tau Empire from a Kroot perspective, or being part of the Tau Empire from a Kroot perspective. I think that'd be really, really cool. Other roles we might see, possibly, you might get a medic, apothecary sort of one there. Maybe that might be what the shaper might be on that side. The sharpshooter, now I have seen, I think in the First Order kin, there is a sharpshooter sort of weapon there, and so maybe having a character to lead would be really, really good there. Krootok's rider character seems like almost a no-brainer, because just to be able to go along with the Krootoks themselves to keep up in pace, I think that'd be really, really awesome. Now, when I say elder, I mean sort of, because Kroot might live for like a longer time, and so maybe one that is a bit more aged, that has a bit more wisdom, maybe Elder Shaper, I don't know. You get the idea in that one that is more about experience of what they've done. And then a Psyker, I'm throwing that one out there, which might be absolutely, out there when it comes to Tau, no Psykers. But if Kroot gain the abilities and physiology and etc. of what they consume, if this is my understanding of lore, could they not have Psykers that way? within the Kroot, universe in their sort of society. Could they have a psyker? Now that would really annoy me as a Drukhari fan because they've got nothing of equivalent. There's an argument to say Necrons that the C'tans might be an equivalent to Psyker, though that might be blasphemy in itself. But then to have Tau to be able to get a Psyker through the Kroot might be an interesting thing. I don't know how people would be a fan of that one, but interested in hearing thoughts on there. Other units. Now, this is first one is going to be looking at Forge World, which was the Great Narlock. This would fill the sort of huge, monstrous creature gap in the Kroot. And I remember them being sort of the one I've got in the image here is the Kroot riding on top, shooting away. But you could also have maybe possibly a huge weapon on the back of it. Think of when you're looking at the Lizardmen from Fantasy. That the idea they have these weapons on their monstrous creatures, so maybe something like that. Sharpshooters, I'm really, really up for the Kroot being sharpshooters, just having these sort of hiding in areas and just picking off targets. I think that'd be really cool. Kroot with wings. Now, we've got Vespids, and yep, that would kind of compete with there, but again, people love Kroot. I'm sure there's Vespid have got their fans as well. But again, I'm going with this sort of ideology of if Kroot gain a little bit of the evolutionary ways when they consume something, it might change how their physiology. So Kroot with wings, idea there. I like the idea if they maybe fly over and bombing run, that might be quite cool. And Kroot using Farstalker weapons. So we have all these weapons that are in with the Farstalker kin. I would like to see them expanded on. Now, the easy thing would be maybe we're going to get in when the Kroot... you see in these box sets, you sometimes get the choice without weapon options. This was more when the Leviathan. And then you get, say, the Terminators, and then the Terminator box set, it's got more options on it. Maybe we'll see that with the Kroot Carnivores. I don't know if I'm not a fan of that, but we might see that in the future, or we might get dedicated units with these weapons. I don't know, but I'd like to see the weapons actually get used more and more. It's almost teasing us. Here's the weapons the Kroot could have. Please utilise them a bit more in the Force. I see a lot of potential there. And that is it for my thoughts when it comes to the Kroot Hounds. What is everyone else's thoughts on this? I think this is a great choice. I've been quite a fan of Games Workshop move in terms of updating the old models as much as possible. They've been doing it for quite a few years now, but we did see obviously the big unit, Terminators, getting updated, so iconic. Fantastic to see there. Then Tyrannid's got a lot of their units, specifically troops updated. And now we're seeing, obviously the Deathwing, which is again another iconic unit. And now we're getting the Kroot, which is another iconic force. They're adding some units to it, but they're making sure that the old units are getting updated. Sometimes not in total, Dark Angels, they left a few iconic units back there, but the Kroot they really have gone here is a lot of their iconic stuff really been updated in a great way. That I'm really, really happy with. And I always say, and I've been saying this for many a year now, and they're really fulfilling it quite well. The area that I'd love to see Games Workshop update is always characters and troops. And so far, over the years, they have been doing that really, really well. So really good to see if you're a Kroot fan, a Tau Auxiliary fan, though I'd argue once we get these Kroot, the Tau Auxiliary fans are going to go, we want different auxiliaries, and there's already people rumbling on, I forget what their name in lore, but it's basically when humans join the Tau Empire. There's a lot of people going, well, can't we have these next? And who knows, I would be very surprised if we got, I forget what they're called, but if we got human auxiliaries for Tau, I would be delighted, but I'd be truly surprised. But I don't think at the moment, when it comes to Kroot, I think a lot of people are quite pleased with what we're seeing so far. What do you guys think? Please comment, share, like and subscribe. And we'll see you on another Tabletop Assault Battle Report.